Thank you, Ria, and thanks to DMKF Foundation for the opportunity to spread the message of life, technology, balance. Today, I'm going to talk about wireless mobile device addiction and how it relates to diabetes. Wireless mobile device. So, what does a wireless mobile device mean? I don't call them smartphones. I call them wireless mobile devices. I think we give them way too much respect by calling them smart. We've got to put them back in their place and call them what they are, WMDs. So a WMD is any device that is mobile or is portable and uses wireless network or internet to send or receive data. So WMD would include our smartphones, smart tablets, iWatches, laptops, video games, and for completion's sake, modern TV as well, because modern TV operates more of internet than the good old-fashioned cable. So before I lay out the learning objectives for my talk, I want to take a moment for reflection. I encourage everyone to sit back, relax, and reflect. Here is something I would like you all to ask yourself. As I hear this talk, am I planning to multitask? Am I planning to check my email? Am I planning to check my social media? Am I planning to reply to some text messages? Or am I just going to pay my full undivided attention for the next 25 minutes? Am I truly multitasking? Or am I just switching from one task to the other and not giving my full attention to either task? Do I ever allow myself permission to just do one task at a time? Is my brain even wired to do two things at the same time? Think about it. So what are we going to learn about today? 3 questions about wireless mobile device addiction. Why, how, and what? Why are wireless mobile devices addictive? What is it about our devices that we find it hard to not reach for them every 90 seconds? How does that behavior affect our health in general and might lead to diabetes in particular? What can be done about it? How do we achieve life technology balance without needing to throw our smartphones out the window? Why does it matter to me? I'm a pediatric endocrinologist. Why does wireless mobile device addiction or life technology matter to me? Let me share a story with you. My story, the story of my journey in medicine. We are going to travel back in time 20 years, July 2002. I was a bright-eyed first-year medical student in New Delhi, India. 8 years later, I was a pediatric resident at Children's Hospital of Michigan in Detroit, and then a pediatric endocrinology fellow at Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. After 16 years of rigorous medical training that spanned over 2 different continents, I signed my dream job as a pediatric endocrinologist at Vanderbilt University Children's Hospital in Nashville. That brought me to Tennessee from Minnesota. That was about 4 years ago. Earlier this year, in February of 2022, I resigned from my dream job and I launched 2 missions. Number 1, CAP Pediatric Endocrinology, my solo pediatric endocrinology private practice in Franklin, Tennessee. And number 2, Freedom, Ungrip Devices, Grip Life. Freedom is an educational platform that is designed to raise awareness about life technology balance. Over the last few years of being a pediatric endocrinologist, I realized that the majority of the conditions that I was seeing in my clinic had nothing to do with endocrine. The children that I was treating, everything was okay with their hormones. It wasn't really about endocrine. It was about lifestyle. Lifestyle that was rooted in part secondary to excessive screen time by children and by their parents. I'll give you a few examples of some real life patients that I saw. I saw a 5-year-old boy, Tyler, for obesity. Tyler weighed 95 pounds at 5 years of age. I checked all of his hormone levels. Everything came back normal. Poor Tyler was so obese that simply the effort of walking from the waiting room to the exam room made him short of breath at 5 years of age. Sophie, 7-year-old little Sophie, I diagnosed her with type 2 diabetes, which we all now know is typically a disease of the adulthood. And then having a conversation with little Sophie's parents that Sophie's risk for heart disease has increased significantly because of her early diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. 11-year-old Jose with poorly controlled type 1 diabetes because he's up at night until 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Doing what? I asked him, what do you do until 1 a.m.? I watch YouTube and TikTok videos. His circadian rhythm is all messed up. While he's up at night, he's eating snacks and not taking insulin for those snacks because his parents are not always there to supervise him. 17-year-old Riley. I diagnosed her with a bed sore, a 6-inch deep bed sore. She has type 1 diabetes. Why does a 17-year-old, otherwise healthy young lady have bed sore? Her addiction to video games and the fact that she is sedentary in her bed pretty much all evening and night after she's home from school playing video games. That made me take a pause. That made me realize that there is something different I need to do for my patients. That made me think that we as a society, have we come to a point of no return where it's okay for us to be engaged with our devices during meal times? We don't think twice about it. Where it's okay for us to check Snapchat while driving, endangering our own life and that of somebody else on the road? Where it's okay for us to pour our personal details and emotions on social media and associate our sense of self-esteem based on how many people like our post, comment on our post, and follow us on social media? That's the new standard we hold each other accountable to. Where we spend endless hours in the toilet, doom scrolling the internet, hardly realizing that sitting in that posture for that long can actually cause hemorrhoids. Where we let our time, attention, and sleep be auctioned behind our backs for a very high price. Where a 17-year-old boy killed himself after being scammed by a sextortionist online. None of this seems okay. None of this seems normal or the new normal. And my friends, I'm here to change the status quo. Why else might wireless mobile device addiction matter? Why else might life technology balance matter? There is now more and more research that indicates increasing prevalence of screen time related disorders such as type 2 diabetes, prediabetes, and obesity. We saw a lot of data earlier. A recent study was also published in NEJM that projected that by year 2030, so in only 8 years from now, 50% of the adults in the US will have obesity and 25% will have severe obesity in only 8 years from now. Now, is the entire obesity epidemic related to screen time? Maybe not. There are a lot of other factors, but screen time plays a big role. The sedentary behavior, the food marketing that we are exposed to, through everything that we access on the internet, and the fact that our brain does not register satiety when we are snacking while we are watching something. We do not have that sense of fullness. Those are some of the reasons why screen time, excessive screen time, might be responsible for the obesity epidemic. So let's try and tackle question number 1. Why are wireless mobile devices addictive to the point where we find it really hard to not reach for them every 2 to 3 minutes? Pavlov was a scientist back in the 1800s. He did experiments with dogs. He was able to condition the brain of his dog to salivate in response to the sound of a bell. Even when there was no food, he would ring the bell, the dog would salivate. He had conditioned the brain of the dog to do that behavior. I sometimes think if in the 21st century, we are somehow a part of Pavlov's experiment where every time our device dings, we're like, what am I going to get next? What did I get next? What did I get next? Did somebody like my post? Did somebody comment? Do I have a new email? Do I have a new text? Our interaction with our devices is very similar to what is described in the science of psychology as behavior addiction. What is behavior addiction? Behavior addiction is unsuccessful attempts to control a behavior. Unsuccessful attempts to control a behavior. One example of this might be we open our TikTok app just to check what's going on for 15 minutes. And then 2 hours later, we are still checking. Unsuccessful attempts to control the behavior. And the bottom line of all of these behaviors lies a neurotransmitter or a hormone called dopamine. Dopamine is the anticipation hormone. Our brain releases dopamine in anticipation of anything that we perceive as a reward. Think sugar, salt, spice, fat. Our brain releases dopamine because we anticipate pleasure. How does that apply to the world of wireless mobile devices? Dopamine sends us down the trigger loop of wireless mobile devices, the trigger loop. The step 1 of trigger loop is cue. Every time there is a ding, a buzz, a chime on our device, the dopamine in our brain shoots up, causes an intense craving to check. We have to check. And then, like Pavlov's dog, our mind has become so conditioned that our subconscious response is to reach for the device. We don't even think twice about it. We reach for the device and we find our reward in our device. We feel satisfied at relieving the craving. What is that reward? A new email. Somebody said, "Oh, you look so pretty" on social media. We feel validated. We want to go back for more. How many people liked my post versus somebody else's post? She's more popular than I am. Every time there is a reward, we are looking for the next cue. Every time there is a cue, we are looking for the next reward. And we find ourselves wrapped in this trigger loop of wireless mobile devices. Now, things have gotten to this point where even if there is no notification on our device, we still want to check every few minutes just in case we missed something, just in case the internet wasn't working. And we refresh our screen and we refresh our screen until we find something. And then our brain tells us, see, there was a reward waiting for you. You should have checked 5 minutes sooner. The trigger loop of wireless mobile devices. Question number 2. How does this behavior affect our health? And like I said earlier, health and well-being in general, and diabetes in particular, what has it got to do with it? The easiest way to understand that is by understanding the escape displace hypothesis of wireless mobile devices. The escape displace hypothesis of wireless mobile devices. What does that mean? Let's imagine that the 24 hours in a day are represented by a bucket. What are some of the common things or activities that we do to fill those 24 hours, okay? Commonly. We put in sleep for about 7 to 8 hours, work or school for about 7 to 9 hours, meals, cooking meals, eating meals, cleaning up after meals, about 2 hours, fitness. Recommendation is to spend at least 60 minutes for physical activity every day. Household chores, 1 to 2 hours. Hobby, if we still have one, for 1 hour. Driving to work, from work, socializing, 1 hour. That's it. That's 24 hours. An average American spends about 3 hours on their devices outside of school and office work. Now imagine what happens to that bucket if we put in 3 hours of screen time. The day doesn't become 27 hours long, but something from the bucket leaks. What leaks? Physical activity, sleep, family time, work, learning. Depending on what it is that leaks from our bucket, that will determine our health and well being. The escape displays hypothesis of wireless mobile devices. What makes us escape? What makes us reach for our devices? Boredom. We don't like being bored. We come to a stop at the traffic light. We must check something. Stop sign, we are doing mental math. Okay, I'm the fourth person to reach the stop sign. There are 3 other people who need to go before me. That gives me about 20 seconds to check whatever it is that I need to check. We are bored. It's okay to be bored. We have to let our mind be free. Boredom leads to curiosity. Curiosity leads to innovation. It's okay to be bored. We escape from stress, conflict with a loved one, conflict with a colleague. We escape from anxiety, poor scores in school. We don't want to deal with it. We want to escape from it, and we want to outsource our coping strategies to the virtual world. I'll deal with it later. Let me just check what's going on the internet. What are some of the activities that we have displaced? We displace exercise. We tend to displace cooking because it's so much easier to order on Uber Eats. We displace sleep. It's really hard not to watch just one more episode of Netflix. And before we realize, it's 1 a.m. And then we make a promise to ourselves that we are not going to do this tomorrow. But then you know how that goes, right? We are so distracted at work, it takes us longer to do the same amount of work. For students, we displace learning. There is so much distraction. We displace family time, screen-free family time with undivided attention that builds a sense of connection, a sense of belonging. We displace focused driving. Now, this is something that I want to ask you. I have a blank space here on my slide. What are some of the outcomes of escape displace hypothesis? What do you think might happen if we keep displacing exercise in our routine? Anyone? Say that again. Obesity, yes, absolutely, obesity. And if we displace cooking, obesity, what happens if we don't get the required amount of sleep? What might happen the next day? Say that again. Irritability, tiredness, fatigue. And when we don't sleep properly the previous night, believe it or not, we are more hungry the next day. When we are stressed, our body is making cortisol, which is a stress hormone. It makes us hungry. So can you imagine, by sleeping well, you might actually lose weight. Okay. What else might be the outcome? Disease, mental health disease, and physical disease, diabetes, prediabetes, obesity, heart disease, anxiety, depression, suicide. The incidence of all of these have increased tremendously in the last 10 years, and social media and internet has a big role to play in that. Life dissatisfaction. We compare our life with everybody else's life on social media and feel bad about ourselves. Burnout. Upward social comparison. What is upward social comparison? Upward social comparison is comparing ourselves with everybody else on social media. Their perfect life, their perfect vacation, their perfect makeup, their perfect bodies, their perfect children, and how our own achievements feel so small compared to everybody else. And if we displace focused driving, death and accident might happen, might be an outcome. Last question. What do we do about it? Should we throw our smartphones out the window and go back to using a flip phone? Some people think that's the way to do it. But what I advocate for is balance. Life, technology, balance. But what does balance mean? What is balance? Balance is finding time for things that we need to do and things that we want to do. And for everybody here, what they need to do and what they want to do might be completely different. What are some of the needs? Work and school, exercise, sleep, eat healthy. What are some of the wants? Doom scroll the internet for 3 hours every day. As long as we are able to find the balance between our needs and wants, we might be okay with keeping our smartphones and not going back to flip phones. I'll give you 2 tools today for life technology balance. And if you want to write those down, tool number 1 is convert the conditioning of the brain from escape displace to engage replace. What does that mean? We talked about the theory of escape displace. How do we change that to engage replace? The next time there is this irrational, irresistible urge to reach for our device, I encourage you to pause. Pause for a microsecond and think, what is it that I'm reaching for my device for? Do I need to do a task with the help of my device? Or am I using it as a distraction? Am I using it as a 24/7 source of entertainment? Am I escaping from something? Am I escaping from a boring situation? And if yes, first of all, rid yourself of judgment. Let go of the guilt. No one is alone. We are all struggling with this. Put that device back down and then turn your attention and engage with whatever it was that you were escaping from and actively engage with that task or that person. So convert the theory of escape to engage. The activities that we have displaced from our lifestyle, let's replace them back. Exercise, sleep, family time, undivided attention to our work and academics. Let's replace them back in our life. My favorite example is that of a butter knife. We use a butter knife to spread butter, and then we put the butter knife back in its place. We don't walk around the house with a butter knife, do we? We don't. It would be weird because we treat the butter knife as a tool that is designed to accomplish a task. We are done with the task and we're done with it. How about we start treating our devices like a butter knife, like a tool? We pick it up to accomplish a task and then we put it back down and we move on. Think of a butter knife the next time you want to reach for your device as a distraction, okay? My patients are children. I'm a pediatric endocrinologist. Their parents often ask me, how much screen time is okay for a child? The first thing that amuses me is they never ask me how much screen time is okay for them. How much screen time is okay for an adult? As if adults have a free pass when it comes to screen time. It's only about children. Then I tell them the issue is not how much time your child or you are spending on the screen. The issue is what else should be happening during that time, what else could be happening during that time? What are the possibilities when we are sitting on our devices 3 hours every day, doom scrolling the internet? Tool number 2, break the trigger loop. We talked about the trigger loop of wireless mobile devices, which begins with a cue, leads to craving, which is dopamine mediated, makes us reach for our device, gives us a reward. How do we break the trigger loop? There are 4 steps. Step number 1, delete the cue. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about each of these on how to do it. Step number 2, curb the craving, the dopamine mediated craving. That's hard. Number 3, weaken the response. This one is the easiest. Number 4, dull the reward. How do we do it? Delete the queue. Step number 1 to deleting the queue is by turning off non-essential notifications on the devices. That itself is a 3-hour workshop. I encourage you to familiarize yourself with the settings on your phone and turn off non-essential notifications so that when you wake up in the morning, your device screen, home screen, does not look like this, with so many red badges vying for your attention, just waiting for you to click to make the red badges go away. Instead, it looks like this. You have your attention. You've got to keep your attention. Your attention is being sold for a very high price, and you don't even know about it, and your time. So turn off non-essential notifications. Step number 2, wear a wristwatch. And if your wristwatch tells you the date, that's bonus 5 stars. Why is that important? Before I started wearing a wristwatch, I would reach for my device about 20 times a day just to see what time it is. And then invariably, I will find notifications. And then 25 minutes later, after I have answered all the notifications, I forgot. Why did I pick up my phone in the first place? Why did I need to check the time? You will reconnect with efficiency. You will reconnect with productivity, health, and joy just by wearing a wristwatch and by using an alarm clock. So that your device is not the first thing you check in the morning or touch in the morning, and your device is not the last thing you touch before you go to bed. Take the first 30 minutes in the morning as your personal private space. Do not let the outside world come rushing in first thing in the morning. Twitter can wait, TikTok can wait, YouTube can wait, emails can wait. 30 minutes, that's all you are asking for. Just 30 minutes to yourself. Take a few big deep breaths. Make that cup of coffee. Enjoy it. Be present with your coffee. Get dressed for office. Imagine what a wonderful day you're going to have, what you're going to be grateful for, who you are going to hug today, before you let the outside world come rushing into your personal, private space. Step number 2, curb the craving. We talked about this. Converting escape displace to engage replace. Every time there is the urge to reach for the device, pause and think. Be mindful of why we are using our device in that moment. Ease into the craving without judgment, without guilt. Put it back down and engage with real life. Weaken the response. This is really important to increase productivity and efficiency, making the devices harder to reach when we need to accomplish a task without distraction, especially at work. Place the devices in a desk drawer to begin with, 15 minutes interval. And if you're able to conquer the urge for 15 minutes, increase that to 30 minutes and then 60 minutes. I think we should be able to work without distraction for at least 60 minutes. We should be able to exercise without distraction for 60 minutes. If there is no desk drawer available, then placing the device in a bag zipper pocket, zip it up and forget about it. Last step, dull the reward. Tough one. First one, delete social media applications. The applications are designed to be addictive. No, I'm not advocating to delete your social media accounts. It's okay to have social media accounts. I use them myself. but the apps are time consuming. I encourage you to try this for 2 weeks. Delete the apps and use social media through a browser. So open Safari or Internet Explorer or whichever browser, type in facebook.com, type in your username and password if you remember the password. If you don't remember the password, well, then it's not even worth it. How many times are we likely to do it? Versus the app is so easily available, we click and we are right there in the virtual world. We have to increase the hurdles before we get to anything that is time consuming. So deleting social media apps, feeling pride in completing a task without interruption, and congratulating yourself on your efforts to curb wireless mobile device craving. I would summarize these with 3 key points. Life technology balance is possible. It is possible. Trust me, it is possible. It needs environmental changes or changes in the settings of your phone more than motivation. Abstinence from all wireless mobile devices is impossible, but moderation, balance, and real life engagement are definitely possible.